Good morning, everybody. I know some more people will probably be cascading in, but we are starting over at the top with the Princeton Selling System. We have a lot of new people here who have not been through it before. Even if you've listened to this as many times as Fred, I still think you will get a lot out of it because this is the backbone of everything we do here. And what you'll find is if you hopped in last week to our SLA training with realtors, that is the very end of a long process of the mindset, skill sets, and habits that I think you see from top performing, not only just loan officers, but independent salespeople in general. And so whether your focus is recruiting, whether your focus is teaching realtors, whether your focus is just becoming the best individual loan officer contributor there is, everything we teach here is about making more money per hour worked so that you can enjoy the rest of your life and being intentional with what you do with your time, both inside and outside of work, so that you can live a happier and better and more complete life. And so the things that we teach here are not necessarily, hey, go make more money, although that's great. In this environment, most of us certainly have goals to get more loans. And so we will focus on those parts of it. But even if you said to me, Mark, I'm actually perfectly comfortable with the amount of production I do, but I want to do it in a more organized way. I want to feel less frantic. I want to spend less hours working. Those are all things that you will learn the skills for as we teach going through the Princeton Selling System. Now, here's the catch. Most of this stuff only works if you kind of nail this first piece, this first lesson. It is very hard to coach a person who doesn't know where they want to go. And I think if you guys are honest with yourselves, there are more people on this call right now that don't have a clear direction or path or destination for what they want their life to look like than there are more people who are unclear about those things than people who are clear. So here's what I will say. Don't get caught up in having a perfect vision. Set one, make it important to you, and start pursuing it today. And so here's what we have a framework here called Objectives and Key Results. It was started by Andy Grove at Intel, made famous later by people at Google, and we've certainly used it here. It's what we set all of our goals for across the company. On an individual loan officer basis, I've been working with OKRs now for 5 years, and I'll tell you that my own understanding of how best to use them and set them has evolved many, many times. I feel like we are significantly further along now than we were with this process, and I think I have a much better understanding of it. I've also taught this process to people from all different types of industries. I've done huge trainings for realtors and real estate groups. I've done it for people. I've worked with CEOs for Wall Street companies and people starting their own businesses for tax credits. Having objectives and key results is a great framework. And then what we've added to it and what we stole from Ninja Selling, which is one of my favorite sales books that's geared towards realtors, is adding a weekly scorecard and how to build your calendar to actually achieve your goals. But first, you need to know where you're going. So how many people have raise your hand if you have a very clear vision of the life you're trying to create for yourself 5 or 10 years down the road, and that when you come to work every day, have a clear vision of your why, for why you're coming to work and what you want your life to look like. Raise your hand. Nicole, Katie, Dan, Josh. This is essential. And here's why. Okay. And by the way, you can be wrong. You can change your mind. I will tell you that mine changes. It has changed over the last 5 years in terms of what I want, what's most important to me and what I'm driving towards. It's okay for it to evolve. But here's the thing. It's hard some days right now to get out of bed and do the activities. It's hard some days, especially if you don't have really strong habits built to make the choice to do the hard stuff. And if you don't have a clear why in mind beyond just getting more or paying your bills or feeling like you're accomplished, then you will not push yourself the extra mile, right? One of the reasons why we love sports is because when people have a championship goal, when there's a prize in mind, we see people give extraordinary effort. We see teams come together and people supporting each other when they can make it more than just about their own stuff. In individual sports like tennis, we see people doing superhuman things when they're focused with the time and the energy they put into the goal. Without a championship to win, the effort on the days you don't feel like it changes, right? And by the way, it's very hard to live an intentional life if you don't know where it is that you're going. So as you take a minute today, what I want you guys to think about, if you don't already have it today, is, okay, wave your magic wand. What do I want my life to look like in 5 years? And think about that, by the way, in terms of who you want your friends to be, who you want your family to be, what you want your finances to look like, and what you want your career to look like at work. right? In terms of all of those things, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Now, here's another kind of just to show you some of the limiting thoughts we have around this. Everybody do me a favor and write down on a piece of paper the number of your goal for income over the next 12 months. Grab a piece of paper, write that number down and circle it. What is your goal for income for the next 12 months? It's always interesting when I see people who are like, I'm not really sure, they haven't thought about it. You got to know where you want to go. What's your goal? All right, now everybody multiply that number times 2, write that number down and circle it. Anybody want to share their thoughts as they wrote down the second number, what their brain said to them?
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible, right? We are so good at telling ourselves what we can't do. And we are so effective at telling ourselves what we can't do. Now, let me ask it another way. Fred, since you volunteered and I appreciate it so much. Is there a loan officer in the country that made the amount of money you made last year that will probably also make the second number that you just wrote down? Is there even just one person in the country this year that you think will probably do that?
Yeah.
Yes. Somebody's going to do it. And that somebody is not better than Fred at being a loan officer. They're not. But they believe they're going to do it. And they're super committed to becoming the person worthy of getting to that goal. And so here's the other thing. When you think about what you want your life to look like 5 years, think about the thought you just had a couple minutes ago. What do I want my life to look like in 5 years? How much of that, whatever you thought, was based on kind of what you think is realistic so that you don't let yourself down? How many of you guys actually really want something more than what you just thought about for your 5-year goal, but you were afraid to even think it to yourself? You were afraid to even let your brain go there because of the pain that might come with not getting there, right? And so the exercise of doubling that income, it's not because you should want to double that income number necessarily, but it's because you should learn about how your brain works. All of you right now are being limited to the results that you can imagine for yourself. And so I encourage you in an amazing way to let go of the how or what you think is possible and just clean slate, dream big, imagine what you want your life to look like 5 years from now. It's always fine along the way to figure out you're not willing to do the stuff to get there. If you do that, but don't let your limitations of what you think is possible get in the way. Because whatever your vision is, somebody who's where you are today in this country will be where you want to be 5 years from now. Even the thing that you think is impossible.
Hey, Mark.
Right? Go ahead, Brett.
Is this part of your OKR goal setting, or is this from Ninja conscious and non-conscious and creative non-conscious chapter?
It's a culmination of all the things that I've read. It's also a lot of this actually comes from Josh. What's the book with the guy and he's running around and interviewing all the super rich people? Help me out. I'm so bad with names.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich, right? So a lot of it comes from the Think and Grow Rich stuff, right? But then all the other sales books touch on those different things in terms of your limiting thoughts, right? But it also comes from my own experience. Let me share with you guys my own experience. And I've seen this over and over again over the course of my own life. When I was in the call center, first starting out at 22 years old, I decided I wanted to be a good loan officer. Then I got passed over for a management opportunity. And again, I was 22, so I probably didn't deserve it yet, and I was going for it. And I told my boss, I said, listen, here's the deal. There's 100 loan officers in this company. Over the next 6 months for our next President's Club trip run, because we did it every 6 months, I'm going to finish #1 in the company, and I'm going to qualify for the 6-month trip in 4 months. And if I do that, you're going to promote me. And he's like, sure, Mark. If you finish #1, you get there in 4 months, we'll promote you. And that was a crazy goal because I never even made the trip at all prior to that. And I was only a year into the mortgage industry, and I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I said, this goal is going to beat everybody else in the company at all this experience. People have been doing it for 10 years. There's #1, 4 months. I finished #1 by 100 grand. And I qualified on the last day of the 4 months. And it became very clear to me that if I would have set a bigger goal or a faster goal, I probably would have found a way to hit that too. In fact, I did just enough along the way to finish number one and to qualify in 4 months. Now, at first I thought that was an impossible thing when I first said it. And by the way, there were people on this call that were there. And so, I'm not making this up, right? So I finished number one in the company in that 4 months, and I did it by a nose, did just enough to get there. And repeatedly throughout my life, if I'm willing to let myself imagine the thing, I find a way to get it done. And that's why I was so excited about the 50,000 loans a year by 2028. Now, maybe we missed that goal by a little, maybe we don't. I still think we have a chance to hit it, right? But I didn't know how I was going to finish number one in the company. I didn't know how I was going to qualify in 4 months. I still don't know how we're going to get to 50,000 loans a year by 2028. But I know that there's no chance of achieving those things, or that I would have achieved those things if I was unwilling to let myself imagine it and set the goal. And then what happens is this: our brains are really good at only seeing parts of the information around us. Because if they were in tune to everything, it would be like the worst ADD in the world. You'd be chasing butterflies everywhere you go. So when we're walking down the street, we focus on the things that are important to us and that we're focused on. Well, if I open my brain up and say, I'm going to get to 50,000 loans a year by 2028, right, as a company, then all of a sudden my brain is always scanning for the opportunities and the threats that might get in the way of or be the reason we can get to 50,000 loans a year by 2028. If I say, hey, I just want to be an average mortgage company that does 3,000 loans a year, I will then only scan in my life when I'm walking down the street and when I'm in my business for the things that will get me to being that average mortgage company. And it's the same thing for you guys in your lives. Your brains will selectively see only the opportunities and threats that you're dialed into for whatever it is that your vision is. And if you don't have a vision, you're floating and suddenly you don't know what to focus on, and neither does your brain. And so you miss all of it. Most of us are walking around in a very non-conscious way about what we're doing and where we're going. I'm trying to here to get with you to build some of the muscles to be intentional around those things. I knew I wanted to be a sales manager. Why? Well, I was pretty insecure. All my friends were becoming lawyers and doctors from high school, and I was doing mortgage sales. And I know I needed to get promoted so I could at least tell people I was a manager, and that's why it was important to me. Is that a healthy reason to have that goal? No. But I knew what I wanted at 22 years old, and I was going to find a way to get it. And I knew if I made that promise to my boss, he'd have to say yes. And then, by the way, I made it, and they promoted me. And I don't think they wanted to, but they had to. They made a commitment, right? I pushed my way through. And so when you think about what it is you want for your vision and for your life, you will start, if you allow yourself to dream big. And when I say dream big, it doesn't mean more money or more loans. It means, hey, maybe it's that you are done with your day at 4 o'clock every day and you can spend time with your kids or your grandkids. Maybe it's that you want to find a way to travel 6 weeks a year or go to Europe for each summer or whatever else it is. If you say, this is what my life is going to look like, we can easily build back from there in terms of what are the mindset, skill sets, and habits that you need to have along the way to make that happen. 5 years is a very long time to make changes in your life, and a very short time if you decide not to make those changes. You can change almost everything in 5 years or nothing. And so when you think about what you want, it's to be intentional about what you want your life to look like. So I'll ask you guys again now, without worried about what's possible, or without worried about how you're going to get there, visualize 5 or 10 years down the road from now. And it's got to be at least 5 years, I think. Otherwise, there's too many limiting thoughts that'll get in the way. But think about where you were 10 years ago and how if you knew where you'd be right now and what's happened to you along the way and all of the opportunities that have come in the cycles and different things. What's it going to look like 10 years from now? What could it look like 10 years from now, 5 years from now? And dream big. Because without a focus of where we want to go, it's the rest of the stuff that we teach in the selling system is noise. It's hard. It's not hard to do the stuff that we teach in the selling system, but it sure is easier not to do any of it. And if you don't know where you're going, you will always take the easy way, right? So that's your objective. If you have an idea, start writing it down, take some notes, but have a clear vision for your objective, where you want to go. Is there an amount of money you want to have in your bank account? Is there an amount of time that you want to be working each week? Is there an amount of, what does your life look like? What are your relationships with people in your life look like? What truly matters to you and what would be success over the next 5 or 10 years? That's your objective. Questions on objective. Someone's got them. Don't be afraid.
Mark, what's yours?
It's a great question. So I defer a lot to our company goal of 50,000 loans a year by 2028 because I think that would accomplish so much of what's important to me. But I have some very specific health objectives in terms of where I want my weight to be, what I want my health level to be, and what I want to feel like physically when I get to 50 years old. I have a very specific amount of money and net worth, which, by the way, I've lowered over the last couple of years, not because I have smaller goals on my way to 50, but because I realize that the difference between my lower number and my higher number will not change my satisfaction or quality of life. Right. And so again, the number was 50 million by 50. That was the number that I had out there originally. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know what I was going to do. Right. And it's not that I lowered that number because I think it's impossible. It's because I kind of decided that the things that actually mattered to me and would make me happy, I could get for 20 million. Still sounds like a pretty big number. Right. Right. And I want to spend some of the other time doing things that I think are more important to me or help develop my quality of life. All of this starts for me, though, because a long time ago, someone asked me, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? And I want there to be a lot of people there who say I helped them get to where they wanted to go. And so think about that for a second. That's actually my driving force, is to help other people accomplish their goals. And then when you think about this morning, I get to do this for a living. That's where the intentionality comes from. Say, Mark, when are you happiest in the world? Is it when you're partying? Is it when you're with your kids? Actually, you know what thing makes me happier than anything else in the world? When someone comes to me and goes, hey, man, how would you do this? And I have a really good answer that helps them live a better experience. Nothing energizes me in the world more than that. So I've spent my whole life figuring out how to make money doing that very consciously. I've known that this has been true for me since a very early age. So the intentionality in my life has led me to this job. And I feel so privileged and grateful that I get to do this with you guys, man. It's amazing. I have the best job in the world. Right. So those are some of mine, right? There's a health component, there's a money component, there's a family time with my kids, what I want, what the life I want my kids to have and have it. There's a relationship component with my wife, and then there's the work component of 50,000 loans a year. That is kind of how I think about what I want those different things. And so here's another thing that I dealt with post-pandemic. Pandemic was really good to the mortgage industry. I made a bunch of money. I achieved my original vision for my life. So if 20-year-old Mark saw 40-year-old Mark, and it was like, would you sign up for what you have right now? My answer would be yes. That was a real trip for me because I had been fighting and grinding through my 20s and 30s, hoping to get to a place. And when you show up there, you realize first, it doesn't make you happy that you got there. Second, if you didn't enjoy the journey, what was the point? And sometimes along the way, I did not always enjoy the journey. Not that I wasn't doing what I liked doing, but I didn't stop and realize I enjoyed it. And I wasn't conscious and present for it along the way. And so how do I want to make sure I spend my next 20 years differently so I can look back and go, actually, along the way, I appreciated the ride. Because this is your life. Your life is not a destination. It's the journey. Right? And so we want to have that destination, but we also want to set ourselves up to enjoy the journey. Or Fred, go ahead.
So how would you, and I've been through this, and every time I go through this, it's changed my life, obviously, with the way I view things and goals, but like I see different things as I move, it's every year, and it's like things that didn't matter or I didn't pay attention to last year, now I see. But how would you recommend, or anybody else on this call, like when you're setting goals up, and then nothing's impossible, but when you're setting up work goals and you're setting up goals to do X amount, but it's just, I'm going to use it, impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like if there's just not enough business for you to do $100 million.
Well,
like how do you?
Let me ask you a question, Frank. So when I met you, if I told you in 2021 and 2022, you were going to make the amount of money that you made, you would have told me that was impossible. When I met you, your objective was your wife had a really good job. She made a bunch of money. You wanted her to be able to quit so she could spend more time with your daughter. And that felt like a faraway goal, but possible. And then you did that times 2. And by the way, it became possible along the way because you opened up your mind, you changed your goals, you picked up new skills, got new things, but it would have seemed impossible to you even 3 years earlier, right?
Yeah, I'm not even saying like for me, this is my struggle. I'm sorry to take up the training, but like for
I think
me,
this is good stuff.
it is a mental thing because like I always have a half of realistic stuff, right? So if you say, I want to build, a house and you can't get any material anywhere in life, like how are you going to build a house? I get it's so
Somebody's going to build a house, Fred.
I know, but I'm saying, so do you think my point is not to defer anybody from reaching their goals or setting those big ass goals? What's Rich say? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
That's the Jim Collins line from Good to Great and Built to Last. Yep.
Should we focus on something in this year? And maybe anybody else has an idea on this, rather than just how much money you want to make, but like something. Like, I always like to go by units, but just stuff that will give, like the go-giver. Like you don't go after how much money, but you do the other things will then return you money. Like, do you think we should focus on that this year?
I think I think this is intensely personal. I think,
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I think for some people on this call, they probably need more to make more money to pay their bills. And so for them, I think that's got to be the first priority, right? And by the way, like there's nothing wrong with that. Every one of us has had, or I mean, unless you were born wealthy, and I don't know anybody on this call that was, and I sure as heck wasn't, we've all had time periods where we had to grind out just to pay the bills, or where we couldn't pay one if we didn't get the loan closed, right? And I've been there and I know what it's like, right? And so for there, I figure, okay, what's the minimum that we can do, the amount of people that we can service if you want to get super zen about it, to go ahead and make sure we hit those receiving goals or get that money in, right? We can talk about it that way. But I would say, listen, it really depends on what your 5 or 10 year vision is, right? And so if your 5 or 10 year vision is, I want to build a team that does 250 million a year. Well, you're going to have very different things that you want to focus on and different things you want behaviors. And somebody who's like, I want to do 20 million a year and 20 hours a week. Now, both of those are really cool visions. Or I want to be able to do 20 million a year from Fiji, right? Like, cool, right? Like, by the way, like all these things are super exciting for me. And then what you'll see is the rest of what we're going to teach in this system will literally tell you what you need to do today to make that happen. Because here's the thing is, even the best dreamers don't know what to do today without a system that's going to lead to them achieving their goals. So the first thing is we got to have a goal. We got to know where we're going, where we want our lives to look like. Then the second piece of this is, how do we become the person worthy, become the person capable, I should say, of behaving in a way that will lead to those outcomes? How do we become the person capable of behaving in a way that will lead to those outcomes? And that's a journey. Good news, 5 years is a long time. And by the way, the journey, whatever your goals are, you're not the first person to go through it. So we can learn from what others have taught us, learning from the best of what others do best, right? And so we can go over those things, but you got to have that vision first. So is it dialing in for anybody what they want their lives to look like? Yes, no, maybe. Keep thinking about this. It's okay to have it evolve, but you have to know where you're going. By the way, you should be inspired by it. You should be inspired by your objective. By the way, the best objectives also inspire others to help you along the way, right? So one of the reasons we 50,000 loans a year by 2028 is the Princeton objective, is because I assume there's at least some of you here that would not be interested in joining an average plotting mortgage company that didn't want to be better every day. The part of the reason Princeton was exciting for you is because you wanted to join a group of people who were really focused on becoming the best possible version of themselves and doing something awesome, that you thought being around those types of people would help you achieve better things as well. And so when we very selfishly said we want to work with the best people in the industry, how are we going to attract those people? We better have really big goals, because the best people also have big goals. Those are the people I want to spend my life with. I want to enjoy the journey with other people with ambition. So that's why I set that goal. What is your objective and how are you going to inspire others? Other questions or thoughts around objectives? Anybody else willing to do what Fred did and have a little group therapy session? So fun. This is something Katie, I'll pick on you for a second. Something when you got here, we spent a bunch of time on. It was like Katie had worked in the industry a long time, had supported somebody else in helping them grow their business. That person retired and she kind of stepped into the business, and there was more money coming in. Katie's gonna make more money no matter what than she made before. It's like, well, how do we dial that into meaning? Right at the beginning, Katie sort of felt to me like you were just worried you were going to let everybody down, and that was your motivation. Is that fair? Okay. So that was a fear-based motivation. But when you used to get back into it, you're like, actually, like, how would this change your life? What's important to you? And it started with, I really want to take my kids to Disney World. Right? That is something that can get you out of bed on the days you don't feel like it. Katie, is that accurate? Did I summarize that accurately?
Yes, and I just gave the Disney planner deposit.
Look, dude, how good did that feel?
It felt good.
Scary, but good?
A little bit scary because, I'd like a few more loans before that, but it's something to work towards,
The loans are coming. Guys, this is the magic of setting those goals. And by the way, enjoying the journey and then getting to do those great things. So it's honestly like that, having Katie get there and do that stuff, like that's like the reason I get out of bed in the morning. Right? When I get on the focus for those things. So knowing what that stuff is for you, right? So here's how we start dialing this in. You have this big goal. You want to have, maybe you want to have 10 investment properties in 10 years, right? You want to have $15,000 a month in positive cash flow on your investment properties in 10 years. Maybe that's your big goal that you work for. Cool. What are we going to do over the next 3 months? And we're about to head into setting Q2 goals. So when you think about April, May, and June, we're about to get there. What are the things that you need to accomplish? What are your key results that will let us know if we're on our way towards our objective? So I want to talk about key results for a minute, because boy, did I screw this up when I first started this. And I think it takes 6 quarters of trying this game to kind of figure out how to dial in your key results. Okay. Still worth setting, but this is a journey. Anybody here have some key results that they think? So anybody here, how many people here have never done objectives and key results training with me before or at Princeton before? Raise your hand. This is your first time going through it. Cool. Okay. Any of you guys have a clear vision for your life 5-10 years down the road? You know what you want to look like and you're willing to share a little bit with me. Be brave. Somebody, anybody. All right. Well, we're going to work through this. You got to come up with something. Whether it's, and you can change it, but you got to come up with something. Let me ask you a question. Don't you think it should be easier for us to figure out what we want our lives to look like? We only get one shot at this thing. Why are we all so willing to just float around and kind of end up wherever we end up? What do you think is holding us back from setting those goals?
Mark, I'll share. I was sorry. I was having a hard time getting it off mute. I'm not in a good position to talk, but I also have a dream of getting my 7-year-old to Disney and losing down to 225 pounds and putting a lot of the money back in my 401k that I lost when the pandemic happened and I got laid off.
Awesome. So and do you have like a horizon for that? Your daughter's 7, you said?
Yeah, my son is 7.
Okay. And so how many years do you have before like the Disney thing, like where you want to get in there, that special magic age? What's like, we got to get them there in the next how many years?
2 years.
2 years. How much money is it going to cost you to take the kids to Disney World? Do you know?
Oh my goodness. I talked to a friend that's a Disney planner the other day, at least $10,000.
That's about right. If you balling on a budget, it's a $10,000 trip if you're going to do it for a week. All right. So by the way, worth it. So it's a great goal. It's a magical thing to be able to take your kids to Disney World. I've been lucky enough to do it a few times. Nothing better. Man, it's, when you're trying to get something done, your kids can be super annoying, but when you get to go somewhere where it's all about them and you get to dial into whatever they want to do, it's magical. Magical experience. Okay. Great goal. What needs to happen for you, Alan, in Q2 for you to know if you're on your way towards your Disney World vacation over the next 2 years?
I at least need to get halfway to my goal of $1 million a month.
So you got to do a minimum of 1.5 million. That would let you know that you're on your way. For you guys that don't know, Alan is relatively new to the business and certainly new to Princeton. Okay, cool. What else?
I think the biggest thing is to continue on my journey of losing weight. For those that don't know me, I started out 3 years ago at 559. I'm down 106. I swim every day. My anxiety when I first started this business was being able to attend events and stand up at, realtor functions and things like that. So my area manager at the time, actually told me that I would never be happy unless I was, or I would never be successful in the business unless I was first healthy and successful in my life. Um, and I started my journey on the way to losing weight, and man, he was spot on. My business has grown, and I've lost the anxiety. I've got 2 loans in this month already. On the way to 3. Um, and the sky's the limit. For whoever said earlier, "What do you do when there's no building supplies?" You go cut the damn forest down.
I love it. So, and by the way, all of that, man, I love the attitude, love all of it. And I love that you're working through it. So here's what we need to do. We are really bad as human beings about, even when we have a clear vision, knowing how we're going to get there. And so actually, I think that prevents us even from having a clear vision, is because we're unwilling to say, this is where I want to go, unless we can see the why. So you got to let go of that first, right? Then we need to do the homework to figure out what are the things that we need to do in order to get there, right? Now, here's the thing. Oftentimes with key results, and I want to say the word results again, we confuse activities with results. So let me give you an example. I'll go through key results in our Paycor system, and someone will say, I want to have 25 face-to-face coffees with realtors, okay? Is that a good thing to be focused on for the quarter? Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to be focused on for the quarter. I think that's probably a big part of building your business. Is it a key result? No, it's an activity, because you can have 50 coffees with realtors, and if you get no loans, you're out of the business. You're waiting tables, right? And so when we're thinking about what we want to do for our key results, we're thinking about what are the vital 2 or 3 things that are going to tell the story about whether or not Q2 was a success or not. So let's say my goal is I gotta lose. So for Alan, I'm gonna make up some numbers here for you. I got to lose another 150 pounds over the next 2 years, and I got to be able to pay my bills, do $1 million a month, so I can save for that $10,000 minimum to go to Disney World in 2 years from now. So that, when we're sitting here for June of 2025, we're in Disney. Kids get out of school and we're going, right? That's the vision. Okay. We're booking it. What do I got to do in Q2? Well, we're not going to worry about the activities part. We're going to worry about the results. Alan just said, I got to do a minimum of $1.5 million so I can stay in the business and start reaching towards my goals. And I got to lose a minimum of 35 more pounds. Okay. Now I say minimum because I think these are important. Whatever your minimum is in your head to stay in that game and think about where you're going towards your goals, that's your 70% of goal number. All right. So if I got to do 1.5 million, I'm setting my goal at 2.1, 2.2 million. And you got to believe you're going to get there. You got to set your brain for it. If I got to get to 35 pounds lost, 50 is my goal. Because when we get really good at setting goals, and you will get good at this over 6 quarters, anything between 70 and 100% should feel like a win. If you're consistently getting above 100% of your goals, it means you're not being ambitious enough when you're setting them. And if you're consistently under 70%, it means that you're either bad at setting goals or bad at execution. So you want to dial this in. My first 6 quarters, I was in the 50s most of the time for my key results. After that, I got to between 70 and 100% almost every single quarter after that. So it takes some skill and some time to learn how to set goals. Remember, your key results should be the vital few things. So Alan can go swimming every single day, but if he gains 10 pounds, he's not working towards his goals. So swimming is not the key result. The key result is, did you lose the weight? The key result is, did you close the loans and make the money? Are you guys with me so far? The key result is, what were my kids' grades in school? Right? Those things are results that you can measure. So in other words, when we wake up on June 30th or July 1st, right? Or it's midnight on June 30th, 11:59. What are the 3 numbers that are going to tell you you crushed it this quarter or not? Well, I think if Alan lost 50 pounds and funded 2.1 million, he'd be throwing himself a parade towards those goals. And that's how you know those are the right things to focus on. Any questions about key results?
Hey, Mark.
You guys are gonna go ahead.
So one of the things I'm focused on is revamp, kind of continuing to grow the value of my top 25 is replacing the bottom 5 people in my top 25 with better referral partners. Is that a key result?
I think you need to add something to it. Because does somebody have to refer you a deal to be in your top 25?
Not necessarily. They just have to be capable of it. So there's some newer relationships that I kind of put in my top 25 that I think have more potential than maybe some that I've known that don't do enough business to maintain that level.
So yeah, so here's what I would say. I would try to pick a key result that then forces you to do the activity of replacing some people in your bottom 5 or your 25. So what I mean by that is I would say, okay, I want to get a loan that closes from 4 new referral partners I've never worked with before. And those 4 referral partners had to have done at least 4 buy sides over the last 12 months or they don't count. So in other words, I'm qualifying so I'm not just setting a goal for, hey, I want 4 new referral partners. I'm saying I want 4 high quality referral partners. I want to define what high quality means, and I'm making up the number 4. It could be 6 buy sides. It could be 4 buy sides and somebody that I'd be proud to introduce to my wife. It could be 4 buy sides and somebody that shares my values, right? Like, so how do you qualify that? And then the result should be that I got a referral that closed, or I got a loan that went into process, or whatever else it is. Then that forces you to rethink about the activities of how you're building out your My 25. That's a key result. Because again, just to add, you could go home today and take out 5 people in your My 25 and put 5 new people in there. And you'd be like, quarter's wrapped up, I'm done. Right? And so one of the things I often use, the framework I use is, how would I cheat myself on this key result? If I wanted to accomplish this without truly accomplishing anything, could I do it? And if there's a way, then you want to continue to qualify it and say, hey, I want this key result to be meaningful, where if I achieved it, it means I really did something special here, and it means I'm on my way. So would your business potentially start to be fundamentally changed if you added 4 new high quality referral partners next quarter, all of whom did X amount of buy side, and the people that you want to spend your life with? Does your business change? I think the answer is yes. And so if there's ways that you can have a key result where you did that and you don't get the desired outcome, how do I dial that in so it's like really meaningful?
So just so I understand, it's not just saying, hey, I want to replace the bottom 5 people in my top 25 with 5 new people, but in order for the key result to be a true key result, is those 5 people have to also have referred me a transaction.
I think what I would say is this. Ken, if you got 4 new referral partners to send you deals next quarter that all were really good people that did at least 4 buy sides the year before, whatever the number is, right? But you only replaced 3 of your My 25. Was the quarter a failure or a success?
I would say, yeah, 75% of it would be a success.
So again, what if you did it without changing anybody in your My 25? What if you just discovered that on your way to this goal, your My 25 was already the right My 25? Would that be a success?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, actually, is I think you're measuring the wrong thing. You're confusing the way to get to the result with how to get the result. So I'll give you another example. If I say 50,000 loans, if I said 50,000 loans a year through distributed retail only as my goal, right? And then it turns out that somewhere along the way, the better business strategy is for us to do some wholesale, or for us to build a call center, or for us to become a broker instead of a direct lender, whatever the answer is. Am I going to not do that because my goal was 50,000 loans a year this way? No, the reason 50,000 loans a year is as vague as it is because I want to stay flexible about what's going to change in the world to accomplish that goal and that mission. And so my answer is, even as my key results for this quarter, let's say this. Let's say Princeton Mortgage wants to do $500 million in loans funded in Q2. Okay. if I do it by doubling the productivity of everybody on this call, or I do it by recruiting a team that comes in and brings in the $250 million in production, are both of those things a win for Princeton? Probably, right? And so I don't want to say like, I'm going to double our production because I'm going to get. So if I set a goal like, hey, I want everybody on this call today to turn in their scorecard every week, would it be very possible for you guys all to do that and for Princeton Mortgage to do less loans or go out of business in Q2? Yes. So it's an activity, not a result. I'm measuring the wrong thing. You could have the world's best My 25 and not get any loans and have it be a complete waste of time. Or you could have a very average My 25 and start getting loans because you're doing other things, and that would also be a success. And so you want to dial into what actually matters. What matters for you guys in this environment is you need new referral partners. Because market share, even wallet share, is not going to be enough with your current realtor referral base because they have less deals. So unless you're stealing market share by bringing in new referral partners, by getting people to work with you that have never worked with you before or have stopped working with you, you are not going to hit your goals. Most likely, you're not going to grow your business. You're certainly not going to make the most amount of money per hour worked. So then how we do that is flexible. So we may say, okay, in week 1, we want to start filtering out your My 25. But maybe we find out in week 3 of the quarter that your My 25 is fine. We need to change our strategy. That's okay. The strategy can change. The goal is still, we got to get some new referral partners in here. Does that make sense to everybody? Say yes, no. Anybody, any other questions about it?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, you're just talking about looking at a quantitative and qualitative aspect of performance. So the qualitative is you're measuring it by a certain amount of numbers or units or outcome, but the process has to be effective to get you there. It's like a weight loss program. You can change your eating habits and eat chicken, broccoli, and avocados and increase, your nutrition. But if you didn't lose weight at the end of the day, then you better change something.
Yes, but let me further that analogy even further. I think you're right. Yes. And by the way, like sometimes we'll be like, well, how do we, let's say part of my job is keeping you guys happy. So the reason we survey you guys and give you guys a survey, how likely would you be to recommend Princeton Mortgage to somebody else, is because the best way I can figure out if I'm creating an environment where our loan officers are going to stay is to find a way to measure your job satisfaction. And so that's why we have that survey. We found a way to measure how happy our loan officers are, right? So, but with the weight loss analogy, it's great. Is it possible to lose weight in an unhealthy way?
Absolutely.
Is, right?
Absolutely.
So this is a great point. So the further analogy. So if I'm Alan and I want to lose 35 pounds, whatever the number is, or I'm Mark and I want to lose 35 pounds, are there other things I want to measure that are just as important towards me doing it in a healthy way? So can I have a counterbalancing objective, right? Is there a cholesterol measurement that I want to have? Is there an amount of sugar intake I want to take below that, where even if I were to lose the weight, if I'm doing it by eating all this sugar, I'm creating a different problem, right? And so the answer is, okay, cool. Now maybe Ken's goal is I need to add 4 new referral partners while having at least 10 of my existing referral partners also send me business. Because what we don't want to do is say, okay, at the expense of everyone I've ever worked with before, I'm paying no attention to them, I'm getting none of those, I just want to go get 4 new referral partners. Was that a win? Maybe. But if we did it in an unhealthy way where it cost us a bunch of referral partners we already had, that doesn't help me towards my overall objective. And so when we think about these counterbalancing, yes, we want it to be qualitative and quantitative, right? So we can measure success or failure, but we also want to make sure that we're measuring the right stuff to get to the outcomes and think about how could we cheat ourselves? How could we achieve this thing and still have it be a failure? Go ahead.
So you come to a point of, is it also a process that's sustainable?
Yeah. Right.
Like, are you able to remain compliant and sustainable to the processes that you're putting into place?
And by the way, maybe it has to be sustainable and maybe it doesn't. Maybe this quarter is a sprint towards an unsustainable thing that's going to help us get to our overall objective. Or maybe we need to focus on building the processes this quarter that are going to make it sustainable. How do I still focus on the result while figuring out how to build my process? And so getting the right key results, I mean, when we sit in a room as a leadership team, we spend a full day on this every quarter. Do we have the right key results individually, our teams, our groups? And this is something you want to spend time on, right? Because here's what ends up happening. If you can dial success or failure meaningfully into the 2 or 3 most important things for the quarter, what we're going to talk about next week is scorecard and calendar. It'll drastically change how you spend your time and how you focus in on what's most important. Because 80% of our work is just noise and there's nothing to do with our goals, our key results and objectives. Guys, it's 10 o'clock. I got to let you go. I really enjoyed this training. Hope you did too. Please rate the training. Tomorrow, we're doing training with Courtney on our new kind of version of Sales Boomerang, which will be built into Total Expert. You don't want to miss it. And then next week, we're going to do scorecard and calendar off of this objectives and key results. If you need help with your objectives and key results during the course of this week, so you can effectively take place in next week's training, reach out to Olivia, to Dave, to me. We'll help you guys get it going. I appreciate everybody. Happy selling, everybody. Let's figure out where we want to go and make sure we're getting there. Thanks so much.